Okay, I'm going to get this going for people can bop in. You okay, Blue? Okay. There's a way. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna check you guys off. It's just gonna take me a few minutes to do this.
Good morning.
Morning. Missed you guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Definitely missed the classroom setting.
Oh, trust me, me too. This is interesting.
Yeah, it's rough being able to separate home life and school when all I want to do is sleep.
Yes.
Hey, at least I'm dying when we're doing online classes instead of having to miss a whole week of
That's
actual
fair.
school.
Take care of yourself, Ireland. If you have to mute out or lay down, these will be recorded eventually and uploaded.
Come on, baby.
Probably to a YouTube. I can't email them. They're too big. I'm just trying to get everybody listed for Savannah, Emily Keller.
I've been drugging myself up with plenty of cough medication and Tylenol.
Oh, yes, Tylenol's good. Fluids. Rest.
I was never sick of my bedroom until I wasn't allowed to leave it.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Ireland, they say drinking really hot things help as well, like a hot tea, hot coffee, hot soup, something to help with your sinuses.
Yeah, I'll have to look into getting some coffee. I don't drink tea. It's like coffee for sure.
Do you have broth? Even if you made like soup and just even drink the broth, that would help.
Yeah, I think we have a bunch of soup downstairs. I had some for lunch yesterday.
Okay, that's good.
I even tried that boiling hot water with the orange peel and a little bit of sea salt. And it actually, because my sinuses have been tricky lately, where it hurts just a little and my ear has been, clicking. And I did that the other day, and it actually helped clear my sinuses. I don't know if it killed a virus or anything, but they're just talking about the hot stuff.
Lots of hot stuff. I'm going to give a few more minutes for people to. My other lecture went late and they had to convert the lecture, so I didn't want to start a new one and it mess up my other lecture, so I had to postpone. Wait for more people to join. We'll start soon. Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I did email this to you, but I can show it live, so I'm trying to. I'm going to post on the page that I started it, because I don't have everybody in here, but let me just put. See if people will see that. Hang on one second. Okay, I have more people. Tia. Huh. Why do I only have Good. Oh, there's Eva.
Oh, okay.
And don't leave me, people. Someone left me. Sydney in here. Ariana, there you are. Joanna, are you here? Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to get everybody in here. Just give it a few more minutes. Okay. Is anybody getting messages from anyone that can't join?
I don't have any messages from anybody.
Nor
I-
do I.
I just got an alert from NBC News that this week's going to get bad.
I saw that. um, sorry, I'm trying to get into my speaker. Oh, input. Huh. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, I was able to turn it up. Okay, you guys were really low. Okay. I'm figuring this out. Oh, somebody else is in. Okay, who just joined? Okay, I think I'm still missing Ariel, Bethany, Sydney, Alonza.
Ariel was hitting me up earlier, so let me touch base with her real quick. She's the only one that I know how to get a hold of.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going by the names that are in my screen. That, making sure I have everybody, because I have to send in attendance. Let's see. Morgan, did I have you? And make sure I haven't gotten any emails.
I sent her a message through Messenger. She's not responding yet.
Okay.
Ariel. Oh, here she comes. What did she say? I just have dots and bubbles.
Dots and bubbles. So somebody just popped in. Actually, Mackenzie Gurley. I think I just saw her. I already had her.
Ariel says, yes, my computer is, can I cuss? It's slow as beep right now. I'm waiting for it to load.
Okay.
So Ariel's trying.
Okay. Someone just popped on and I'm not. So I'm still waiting on Ariel. I'm still waiting on Bethany.
Sydney's the one that just came in.
Oh, Sydney. Sydney, where's Sydney on my list? Harlow. Good, thank you. It's hard. I wish it. Oh, and I have a new participant. There we go. Bethany. I got her.
So
There
you're
we
just waiting on Ariel then?
Okay, I'm going to get started when Ariel's computer catches up. How I've been doing this with my other classes is I'm going to mute everybody as I talk. There is a chat pane, so you can type in a question if you have it. It's just easier to not hear background noise. So that's how I'm going to go. I think you guys can unmute yourself, but it's easier just to type a chat if you have a question. So that's what I'm gonna do. Oh, okay. I'm just here dying a little bit. Here's my chat. Okay, so we're gonna get started. You guys can see the PowerPoint, okay. I just sent, you should have gotten this PowerPoint and the homework, the study guide, and okay, I've got Bethany on there. Okay, so we're doing the integument, which is kind of related to we just did tissues. So integument is anything pertaining to the skin. And gave me straight that, so I'm hanging. Okay. All right, nothing pertaining to the lecture. Okay, so what is the function of skin? Be able to tell me functions of the skin. Obviously, cover the skin, cover the body, and protect the underlying tissues. Desiccation means falling apart. So as long as, if your skin does not desiccate, it maintains connection. So it prevents the body from basically coming apart. Reduces the threat of injury, helps maintain temperature, so your skin is an insulator. It does excrete waste, so excess water through sweat, salts, organic waste, actually a little bit of urea. Most urea is excreted in the urine, but a small amount of urea comes out in the sweat. It receives information, so you have sensory as part of your integument, so any touching is going to be picked up on that as well. Synthesizes vitamin D, so that's why it's important sometimes to get sunlight with your skin. It helps your body process and absorb vitamin D. You can also store vitamins. A lot of lotions and things have vitamin E, vitamin A, part of what the skin does absorb. So you can absorb through the skin. The three main layers of the integument to know is the epidermis, which is pertaining to this area. Can you guys see when I put the arrow over the PowerPoint? Hopefully you can see that. Thank you. Okay, so you have your epidermis here, which is the thin, dense layer. Then the dermis is the majority of your skin. So the dermis is this whole section here. The majority of your structures, sweat glands, hair follicles, sebaceous glands, nerve endings are all in the dermis. And then your hypodermis is this area below. So if I ask you the three layers to the integument, you would tell me epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. You may have to label this image. I am going to try to figure out how to do that. I will keep you posted. But this would be the picture that if I had it on the test, and I'm obviously going to go into what these structures are over here, but do know this picture, okay? So we're going to break down what is in each layer. Basically, this is just showing you this epidermis is primarily very densely packed cells, layers and layers of cells. The closer to the top, that's where the dead cells go. So they're going to be higher, densely packed. And then this is going to be a little bit looser, obviously, this dermis and then the hypodermis. If you were to, I talked about sending a sample out to the lab and they dye the sample. You can see the epidermis, because it's dense, picks up the majority of the darker dye. So this is about the thickness. The dermis is this deeper layer. If you see these white bubbles, that is actually fat. That does not pick up the dye because it's oily. So the skin and the other structures pick up the different densities of color. These fat globules, these is actually adipose tissue. And that you can see the majority of it, sorry, my arrow's going crazy. The majority of your fat is in the hypodermis, okay? So we've got epidermis, dermis, hypodermis. This is typically where your blood vessels are. I'm gonna keep breaking this down. The types of cells that you find in that upper layer, they're primarily, you're gonna find keratinocytes. If you remember, keratin is a special secretion that cells, they will actually, the top of the cell secretes it, and this gives resiliency and strength. So it gives your skin a little bit of stretchability, but allows it to be fortified or strengthened. That's why keratin is added sometimes to like hair products, lotion, things. It's supposed to give strength and resiliency to your hair and skin. You will find melanocytes. Melanocytes produce melanin, and that's what gives your skin pigment. Obviously, we know people that are fair are going to have less melanin. The darker your skin is, you're going to have more melanin. And melanin is a granule that is basically penetrates the cell, and that's why people have either more melanin or less melanin, which is genetic. Langerhans cells are in the epidermis. They phagocytize, which is eat. Phagocytize is to eat microinvaders. So if you get bacteria on your skin and it penetrates, that cell would help eat, or hopefully eat the bacteria before it penetrates the skin and before it goes in further. There are Merkel cells, which actually support the nerves. The only three that I want you to know are what they do is a keratinocyte, a melanocyte, and a Langerhans cell. So, sorry, I was getting a message from someone. Okay, so these are the main cells that we see. Now, if you look, what this picture is showing you is that even though this is a very small layer, it is made up of layers within. The only ones, the ones that animals typically have is animals typically have stratum corneum, which is also called the horny layer, but think about corneum or cornified is very dense. Okay, so that upper layer is more dense. Then animals have the granulosum, which is granular layer is where it grows from. So you have a granular layer is dividing, and then the stratum basale or basal layer is the very bottom. So I really want you to know corneum, granulosum, and basale. Okay, those are the three primary. And remember, you can type a question in the chat pane if you need me to stop and explain something. Okay. Now, you will not need to label this. You would label the whole primary structure if I figure out how to do that online. This is just showing you an example. This is just another picture of what we're looking at, but I want to skip over that one because what I want to show you on the next one is this is what it looks like. So the stratum corneum is that very dense on the top, okay? This is the part that if you scratch their back and the flakes come off, they are shedding from that stratum corneum. So the dead skin, the dead cells start to come. And remember if I said that cells, as they age, they flatten, they start to lose their nucleus. So these cells are typically like shells of a cell, like a cell that was once. The majority is going to be these transitional cells. which are basically going from immature, which is here, they start to mature and then they flatten out and then they die at the top. So they begin to change. Now, obviously, the hypodermis is down here. This is what I'm talking about right here, is in the epidermis. We don't need to know this picture, so I'm going to skip over this picture. This is what it's showing you right here. Okay, so we're just talking about this layer right here, which is epidermis. If you were to send a sample to the lab, okay, you can see you've got stratum corneum, which is dense. We've got this lucidum is clear, but I said you didn't need to know that one. Granulosum is granulating, so we have new kind of baby cells. You can think of it that way. And then I'm going to talk about this basically where it connects, which is the spinosum. What's interesting is the epidermis of hairy skin, which is animals that we deal with, they really have the 3 layers. They have the corneum, spinosum, and basale. So they don't have all 5 layers of their epidermis. So if you've ever looked at an animal that has dry skin, sometimes oily skin, if you go backwards against their fur, sometimes you can see they actually look like scales folded over each other. So basically they can kind of overlap like scales. One thing that I want you to know for the test, if I say what is a tactile hair, tactiles are sensory hairs. This would be like a whisker. Let me see if I can type that here. So I just typed it so you would know to write it down. But if you've looked at a cat, obviously they've got the very obvious whiskers that stick out. But you'll see sometimes throughout the hair, you'll see one hair that looks a little bit more coarse. It's, you know, different. That would be a tactile hair. So they are spread throughout the body. Obviously the whiskers are more prominent, but they have tactile hairs that help them as they move, sense things that are by them. So you can actually see these tactile hairs sometimes. So the dermis is now the thicker. That was all the epidermis. The dermis is this thicker layer. It's the greatest part of the integument, sometimes called the hide, but I call it the dermis. So it's, remember, this is dense, irregular, connective tissue. So it is dense, but remember, skin is thicker in different areas. Remember I pointed like to my elbow? This is obviously thicker than this skin right here. So it is it's dense, but it's irregular in different areas where it needs to be thicker. So it's collagen, elastic, but it has to have reticular fibers. Reticular fibers allow things to go. The dermis needs to allow things to get between it. So we have to allow some cellular transport in between that dermis. These are all things that you find in the dermis. If I was to say, what are 3 things that you can find within the dermis, this would be your hair follicle, nerve endings, your glands, smooth muscles, blood vessels, lymphatics, fibroblasts. Adipocyte is a fat cell. ADIP stands for fat. So an adipocyte is a fat cell, and then you have macrophages. So be able to tell me at least 3 things that you find in the dermis. Would be any of these things. There's 2 layers to the dermis. Technically, the papillary layer is the superficial. So here's what I'm talking about. Here's the dermis. This papillary dermis is the top. And it has papillae like projections, like the little bumps on your tongue are papillae. They're like little projections. Think of it this way. Have you ever, well, I can't, you guys can type it or just know it in your head. If you see those egg crate cartons or that mattress you put on your mattress and it has like little bumps, imagine if you put two of them together and those papillae lock or they come together. So you can see the epidermis peels away from these dermal papillae that are sticking up. So this is just right below the epidermis. There's blood vessels and nerve endings in this layer. Now, most of it is reticular dermis. Now, reticular needs to have structure, but it needs to allow things to go in between. So it has collagen fibers and it has folds, and this layer is where you're going to find a lot of the hair follicle, the blood vessels, and other structures is in this reticular layer. The hypodermis, if you've ever heard the term, if you ever have the like a hypodermic needle, if you basically think of it like my sweatshirt, okay? If I go to give an animal an injection, I pick up the skin, and when you pick up the skin, you are holding dermis and epidermis. Basically, underneath that is the hypodermis. So this is basically, hypodermis layer is free from the epidermis and the dermis. So if I lift this up, basically the epidermis and dermis come off of the hypodermis. And when you put the needle in here, you're depositing the material in between the dermis and the hypodermis, okay? It is connected, but it allows for movement. Like the skin, if you like rub your dog, the skin moves. And basically that's the epidermis and the dermis moving from the hypodermis, okay? So right here, it tells you it allows the skin to move freely on the underlying structures. This is technically areolar tissue. Remember, areolar is very thin. This is because this is where medications and fluids, like when you give sub-Q fluids, those fluids are going to sit there and the blood vessels are going to absorb that fluid eventually. But that's why it has to be areolar. It has to, you know, because you have your fat, blood, nerves, and lymphatic vessels. Your lymphatics and your blood help transport that fluid and those drugs, like when you give a shot under the skin, like a vaccine, a medication, fluids, it's going to absorb under that layer to the blood vessels, to the lymphatics, okay? You also have Pacinian corpuscles there, but I mainly want you to know that we're talking about the fat, the blood, the lymphatics are found in this sub-Q layer. Okay, so are there any questions about the layers or what you need to know? Nobody's typing a question. So the next things I'm going to talk about are specializations in the skin. So these are things that animals have as part of their integument, and they're different per animal. So I'm going to go over each of these. Now, pigmentation is basically, we know that animals have different colors to their skin. They have different, basically, it's the presence or absence of melanin granules in the extensions of melanocytes. Imagine if you had a cell, okay, and inside the cell, think about like an egg. You have an egg, you have a nucleus. If the inner part of the egg or that nucleus, if all the granules were near the nucleus, it doesn't let its pigment out into like the white of the egg or the cell. If you have a melanocyte and all the granules are dispersed, it's going to allow for that pigment. So if you have like a white boxer, basically all of their melanocytes are keeping the pigment inside or closer to the nucleus. If you have like a black lab, you're obviously going to have the pigmentation is going to spread out into the cellular arms and the tissue. It kind of like lets out its granules. Okay, so that's why dogs that you can have spots, you can have a white dog, you might have a tan, brown dog, a black dog. It's just how much genetically do the melanocytes give up their pigment. Okay, there is a hormone that helps control the disbursement of the granules. I just want you to know that a melanocyte is what gives pigment. That's all, that they disperse into the cell or they're closer into the nucleus. Okay, that's what I want you to understand about pigment. And that is genetic. That is genetic. Okay, now paw pads, what we see with paw pads is in this area, you have basically tough, thick, fat, and connective tissue. So there's fatty tissue and the connective tissue is more dense. This is where dogs and cats sweat from. This is where they have their exocrine sweat glands, okay? Dogs and cats sweat by panting and through their paws. So this is where you find the fat pads and the sweat. There is something called conical papilla. If you look at your dog's paw pad, they should be smooth, okay? They should be, typically they're pigmented and they're smooth. But if they ever get wet, like you take them on a walk, and sometimes you can see they actually have these folds, or you can see these little papillae come out. Okay, so sometimes you can see them. They should be smooth. They have carpal pads, metacarpal pads, and digit pads. Okay, so the ones that touch the ground is the metacarpal is that big pad, and then the digital pads cover each digit. So here's a digit, 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 digit. Metacarpal pad. The carpal pad is sometimes called an accessory pad. I'm going to type that. So sometimes people call it an accessory pad. It does not typically touch the ground unless they were to really go on their haunches. A lot of times that never touches. I will tell you, sometimes dogs will get overgrowth of these pads. They almost look hairy. I used to work at a dermatology practice, and we had a little dachshund come in, and they were just basically overgrowing. Probably had a genetic disorder. We would actually trim them, and the owner would put like ointment. If they get really cracked paw pads, kind of like how people have dry skin, you can put, if you've ever gone to Walgreens, there's this stuff called Bag Balm, BAGBALM. I just typed it on the chat screen, but it's something called Bag Balm. The problem is whenever you put something on a dog's paws or a cat, they're going to want to lick it. You can either put a sock over it, you can put a little booty over their paw. As long as the ointment basically stays on for about a half an hour, then they should have absorbed what they need from the ointment. So as long as you have contact for half an hour, you can do that, okay? Most of the time, these should be tough, but I'm gonna give you an example. You might have a guy that works in an office, and then you have a guy that does construction. And obviously, sometimes the construction worker is gonna have very tough, rough hands, and somebody that works in an office is going to have, you know, very smooth hands. It's kind of like if I have the little Maltese that barely touches the ground, and then you have a farm dog that's basically working the farm. Some dogs are going to have really sensitive, soft pads, and some are going to be thicker. So it's kind of just like people. How much do you use your hands? It's going to be thicker the more work and the more activity they get. So, similar concept. What we're looking at here is another specialization. These are special areas where the skin is different, is called the nasal planum or the planum nasale. This is the top of the nose in a cat or a dog. In pigs, that round part in the front on a pig. In a cow and a horse, it's actually the whole top of the muzzle is called planum nasolabiale. Naso meaning nose, labia meaning lip. So in a cow and if you look at a horse, they have this very soft muzzle, and that whole thing is called the planum nasolabiale. I would want you to know the difference. If I said what species has a nasolabiale, you would tell me a cow or a horse. If I said what species has a nasal planum, dog, cat, sheep, or pig. So as long as you can tell me the difference on who has them, most of the time it is pigmented. Sometimes, obviously, sometimes a white cat, it might be pink. If you have a tabby, it might be like pinkish brown. You know, you have a lab that has a black nose. Sometimes a chocolate lab looks a little more pink or tan. So it can be different pigment. It's kind of like redheads, blondes, brunettes, people with black hair. You know, sometimes the white dogs and the very like blonde breeds, like a yellow lab, it could potentially be a little more pinkish. But I've seen Goldens with black noses, so that's very common. But I do want you to know they do not have glands, except pigs and sheep have glands in their nasal planum. Now, it basically, if you look at it close, it has these plaques and grooves. Now, sometimes, just like I talked about in paw pads, this can get very cracked and very dry, okay? You can try to put ointment. The problem is a dog or a cat's gonna lick their nose. So it's a lot harder to put medicine or moisture on their nasal planum. Actually, sometimes a very reddened, cracked nasal planum is a sign of lupus in dogs. In dermatology, when we saw dogs with lupus, they usually had cracked, reddened sores up on this portion of their nasal planum. So if you have an issue and a dog has issues or cracks, you know, it may need to be investigated. It may not be just dry skin. Could be nutrition issues, but it's something that maybe needs to be looked at. Okay. So remember, bop into the chat if you guys have any questions. Now, in a horse, they have two structures that are basically part of the epidermis. They're like a dark, horny structure. They're basically called ergots and chestnuts. If you look, chestnuts are basically on the inside, which is on the medial surface near their carpus or their tarsus, but they are on the inside. They look kind of like an irregular, almost like a growth. What people think they came from is if we haven't done the bones yet, but basically horses, remember I said they're standing on this digit. These two digits grew into splint bones. They think that maybe this is the leftover from a thumb, okay? They don't have this bone. but they think potentially the chestnuts could be that this has kind of grown up and turned into this little kind of, it looks like a dry, almost like if you imagine a horn was cut off and it was like it's really flat to the skin. Okay, you can Google images and say horse chestnut and see pictures on a live horse, but the chestnuts are up higher. The ergots are basically down here, and they are buried in the hairs. Now remember the fetlock? I said the fetlock is this caudal portion. This is technically palmar. This is plantar. So sometimes horses have some hair right there. So it's not, the ergots don't show up really prominent. They're usually kind of like you'd have to move the hair to be able to see where they are, okay? But those would only be on a horse. If I asked a question, say, if I said the dog has very prominent chestnuts, true or false, you would obviously tell me false because only the horses have the chestnuts and the ergots that I was talking about. Okay, so basically what we have in sheep is they have these things called cutaneous pouches. Now, these are basically folds. A cutaneous is pertaining to skin. So when we say cutaneous, like subcutaneous is under the skin. So cutaneous is basically like the skin folds. It's not like a buried pouch internal. It's like the skin folded on itself and made a pouch. Inside this pouch, they have very fine hair. So it's finer than their normal hair would feel. They have these sebaceous and oil glands. Sebaceous is like an oily secretion. And then they have oil glands. There's 3 spots on a sheep you can find these. We basically find them infra means underneath. So infraorbital, here's the orbit. Infra is going to be like right in here. And then you're going to have interdigital. These are the digits. So these folds can be found in between. And then also, if you laid a sheep on its back, you put them on their back and look in between their legs, they're going to find these inguinal. Sometimes what you're going to find here is they're going to be like kind of greasy, kind of have like a, they're going to have like an extra secretion there. They could be stained because sometimes this oily area is going to stain. Hang on, I'm getting a message. Okay. So you're going to have, sometimes you're going to see staining there. This is also a scent. They can mark with these, so it's a marking technique, usually done, and you only see these in sheep. Only do this in sheep. Okay. Let me see. Okay, I see. Hang on one second. If I unmute you guys for a second, you're all unmuted, so stay professional. LOL. Is Alonza on here, Hines? Alonza?
Not that I can see.
Yeah. Okay. Is Joanne on here? Joanne, can you hear me? Joanne? It's weird. It says I have 24, and that's I'm not showing everybody if they're on here. Hello, people. Okay. I think before I step into the next one, I may stop at that. Did anyone have any questions? Were you guys able to see everything I was pointing at?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You understand the assignment and the email?
Yeah, you want the study guide and then the lab work due Thursday, right?
Correct. I think what I might do is you were going to do this same time. Why don't we do 10:15 for the next couple days? So we'll do this same time tomorrow. I'll send you the link. These will all be recorded and put on a YouTube channel eventually. My husband's got to help me do that tonight, hopefully. So then you can replay this if you have questions. I will probably send out the study guide answers. If we get through this faster, I might try to take the quiz sooner. We'll just see how we're doing. Okay. I will keep you posted.
Do you want it due by 10:15 on Thursday?
Yes, that would be the same, yeah, at class time.
And do you want it typed or do you want us to take a picture of it like right now?
It would be, if for the lab book, so you're not taking multiple pictures, you might want to either type or write out the answers on paper. So you could just send me the lab answers. As far as the study guide, it could be typed. It just needs to be sent to my school email.
Okay.
Okay. I'm looking at my plan here. I'm thinking, okay. I'll just see how we get done with lectures. So the quiz could be Thursday
Hi,
or
pretty girl.
Friday. Okay. Someone's asking about, yes. I think I had all homework due. Did I have that due Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday. All right, we'll just keep that the same. We'll keep that the same. Anything I change, I will email through Teacher Ease. If you have questions, you can email me through Teacher Ease. Sometimes I'll post in the Facebook group, like updates, but everything official will always come through Teacher Ease. Okay. If you, for some reason, have not received the attachments, email me and I will try to resend them to you.
Okay.
So the study guide is on Teacheries, like it's gonna be, is it there already? Like,
Yeah, I think I emailed it Friday. On Friday,
okay,
I believe I emailed the study guide with the PowerPoint and
Yes.
then, yes, and then there's some lab exercises. The lab exercises have good pictures of the skin, and then I will send you guys the key to the lab exercises. So you'll have all the answers after it's due. So I'll send that out. Yeah. Did
And
any?
as,
Oh, go
and
ahead.
as far as you're saying right now, our quiz will be on Friday.
Friday, I may move it to Thursday if we get through the lecture faster. I'm gonna see how we do tomorrow.
Okay.
Did I say Friday for the quiz?
Yeah, I had Friday written down someplace from an email.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from the email. It just says it's a possibility it would change. But yeah, you put Friday.
Okay, sorry, all my classes are blending together, so I'm trying.
Yeah, it's a stressful time for everybody.
I'm glad you guys got on. We're doing the best we can. I kind of like this Zoom. I like to kind of have a live thing going on. So hopefully
I agree. It's working. I love the Zoom. I can see you. I can see the slides and hear you. So yeah.
I've
Good.
had problems with it on the actual laptop. Like it would cut me out mid lecture. So I chose my phone this time and it works a lot better.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'm gonna just keep doing the lectures this way. I may open up a day before the quiz and just do like a Zoom review and say, do you have questions? Do you have, you know, you have
And
the,
are you sending the lecture notes as well? Or did you? Did you already?
you should have got this PowerPoint that I'm showing. I sent on Friday. So this,
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just couldn't remember. My bad.
oh yeah, no, that's good. And then I'm trying to give you like the little tips, like be able to do this, this, and this, you know. So, and I appreciate you guys putting on Facebook. I have another class that one student, she always says, this is what's due every day. I'll try to check it for accuracy when I look at it, but I will do all my communication through Teacheries. Or yeah, I'll send you an email through Teacheries. You can reach me. IBC is the best. I'm just trying to keep everything condensed to one email. Okay, do you have any other questions?
Nope.
Nope, I'm good.
Once I figure out how to convert these files, these lectures will all be uploaded probably to like a YouTube channel. And when I get that figured out, I will email you guys.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Good.
Well, you guys have a good morning. Ireland, if you're still on here, please take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Hot, you could do this. This is what I do for cats that have upper respiratory, is sit in a bathroom for a half hour, run your shower as hot as possible. And that steam, just sit in a hot, don't pass out because you get too hot. But that's what I tell people with cats with bad upper respiratories. I'm like, put them in a bathroom, run the shower as hot as possible for a half hour. It acts like a steam room. It may help.
Yeah, I've been boiling myself like a lobster the last couple days. So
Put your towel over the boiling water. You could do that too.
Yeah, I like that. That worked for me with my sinus pain.
Just don't pass out over the hot boiling water.
No.
Okay.
Oh, and if you're wearing not waterproof mascara, that'll run all over your face while you're doing the steam.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, my son laughed at me because I had black eyes afterwards.
Oh my gosh. Well, I didn't think about that. So that's a good tip. Watch your mascara. Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, we'll plan on 10:15, same time, same bat channel.
Awesome.
Okay.
Sweet. Sounds like a plan.
All
right.
right. Thank you.
I'll talk to
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good
Bye. Bye.
one. Bye.